That's just a normal thing when death occurs. It's just like, I ain't gonna say it's wrong to show love, but if it ain't genuine, why do it? Like, if it ain't real, like, you know what I'm saying? So everybody know, like I know, like you know, then fuck with bro like that. You know what I'm saying?
The jury found the defendant Hernandez Govan not guilty in count 1 of the indictment. We, the jury, find the defendant Hernandez Govan not guilty in count 2 of the indictment. Ms. Johnson, is this your verdict? Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is this your verdict? Is this your verdict?
Yes.
Is this your verdict?
Yes, Your
For years, fans have been waiting for Key Glock to open up about the darkest chapter of his life, the murder of his mentor, cousin, and business partner, Young Dolph. Glock and Dolph weren't just label mates on Paper Route Empire, PRE. They were family, blood-tied, and built an empire together, brick by brick. But when Dolph was gunned down in his hometown of Memphis back in 2021, Glock went completely silent. He dropped music, he toured, but when it came to speaking about Dolph's death, he kept it all bottled up. Until now. In a recent interview, Glock finally let some of that pain spill. He talked about how Dolph's death still haunts him, how he feels betrayed by people Dolph trusted, and how the industry showed fake love once Dolph was gone. Glock didn't break down every detail, but the way he spoke told a story. This wasn't just murder, it was betrayal. Someone lined Dolph up, and Glock knows it. Let's rewind. On November 17, 2021, Dolph was killed while picking up cookies at Makeda's Bakery in Memphis. A routine stop in his city, the same city he refused to leave, no matter how many warnings he got. For years, people told him, "Get out, Memphis, too hot." But Dolph's loyalty to his hometown ran deep. He always said he'd never abandon the city that made him. That loyalty, though, may have cost him his life. 2 men, Justin Johnson and Cornelius Smith, were charged as the shooters. Johnson, who went by straight drop, eventually got convicted and sentenced to life. But here's where the story gets messy. Johnson wasn't a stranger. He had ties to PRE before all this. He popped up in Glock's old videos, he was seen around the crew, and he moved like someone who had access. That shook fans. How does someone close enough to be around Glock and Dolph suddenly turn into a trigger man? That's when people started whispering. The betrayal wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from right next to them. Then the feds charged Hernandez Govan with ordering the hit, but Govan had no public beef with Dolph, no street drama that anybody knew of. That made the case look even more suspicious. If Govan was really behind it, then who paid him? Who benefited from taking Dolph off the board? To many, Govan looked more like a pawn than the mastermind. And that's why Glock's silence was so loud. Because in Memphis politics, you don't go to the cops, you don't name names, but you don't forget either. Glock staying quiet wasn't weakness, it was survival. Now, years later, Glock is starting to crack that silence. He hasn't given the streets every detail, but you can hear it in his voice. Dolph didn't just die, he was lined up. People close enough to touch him made it happen. And Glock, the man Dolph left as the face of PRE, is still carrying the weight of knowing the streets may never tell the whole truth.
We haven't really heard much from you since the tragic passing of Dolph. Is this the first time that you've done an interview since he passed?
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you holding up? I mean, obviously, something that's...
I'm content. I'm all right.
When you say content, what does that mean? Like
I'm maintaining. Like I'm not getting better. I'm not getting worse. I'm just here right now.
Yeah.
That's just a normal thing when death occurs. It's just like, I ain't gonna say it's wrong to show love, but if it ain't genuine, why do it? Like if it ain't real, like, you know what I'm saying?
When the news broke that Justin Johnson, AKA Straight Drop, was one of the shooters, Memphis was shocked. This wasn't just some random hitter off the block. Johnson had real ties to PRE. Footage resurfaced of him in Glock's older music videos, hanging in the background like family. He wasn't a stranger to the empire. He was close enough to breathe the same air as Dolph and Glock, close enough to know their moves. That detail made the murder feel less like a street beef and more like a setup. Fans couldn't believe it. How does somebody who once stood next to Glock in videos, who brushed shoulders with PRE, turn around and be the man squeezing the trigger on Dolph? To the streets, that wasn't just betrayal. That was proof that snakes had slithered their way inside the camp. Glock didn't say it out loud, but when he finally spoke, you could tell he felt it. Dolph's killers weren't strangers. They were people who knew him, studied him, and then plotted against him. Then came Cornelius Smith, Johnson's co-defendant. Together they were painted as the two gunmen who ambushed Dolph at Maqueda's bakery. But when Hernandez Govan was later accused of ordering the hit, the questions grew louder. Govan wasn't known to have beef with Dolph. He wasn't from some rival crew constantly at Dolph's neck. So why would he want Dolph gone? The theory? He didn't. He was just the middleman, the one carrying out a bigger order from higher up. And that's where fans started side-eyeing the industry itself. Dolph was loud about his independence. He turned down major label deals worth millions. He built PRE with his own money, signed artists he believed in, and showed rappers they didn't have to sell their souls for a check. That independence made him powerful, but it also made him dangerous to the system. Killing Dolph wasn't just a street move, it was a power move. To make it even more suspicious, people close to the situation pointed out how comfortable Johnson seemed after the shooting. Instead of going on the run forever, he was seen flashing money on social media like he didn't think the heat would come down. Some fans took that as a sign that he thought he was protected, like somebody higher up promised him a safety net. But in reality, he was just a pawn. When the pressure came, the system swallowed him whole. And this is where Key Glock's silence hits different. He wasn't about to get on camera and spill names. He wasn't about to turn into a snitch. But at the same time, he knew what everybody else knew. Dolph didn't just fall to random bullets. The shooters were connected. The order came from higher up, and somebody benefited from Dolph being gone. When Glock finally did open up, he didn't point fingers. But you could hear the weight in his words. He's not just grieving his cousin. He's living with the knowledge that betrayal came from close. Maybe even closer than anyone's willing to admit. That's why the streets keep saying this case ain't over, no matter how many convictions go down. One thing everybody respected about Young Dolph was his loyalty. He wasn't the type to run from his city just because he made it big. While other rappers moved to Atlanta, Miami, or LA, Dolph stayed rooted in Memphis. He gave back constantly. Free turkeys on Thanksgiving, money for schools, opportunities for his block. He wanted to prove you could make it and still hold down your city. But that loyalty, as inspiring as it was, might have been the very thing that cost him his life. Dolph had been warned countless times. His own people told him Memphis was too dangerous. He'd already survived multiple attempts on his life, including being shot at in 2017, more than 100 times in Charlotte, and again that same year in LA, where he was hit but lived. Every time he bounced back, he brushed it off like it was part of the game. To him, leaving Memphis would have felt like abandoning the people who made him who he was. But to the streets, his decision to stay was a gamble with his life on the line. That's why his death at Maqueda's Cookies hit so hard. This wasn't him out of bounds, wasn't him caught slipping in another city. This was Dolph in his own neighborhood, at a local bakery he always supported. To his fans, it was the ultimate betrayal. Gunned down not in enemy territory, but in a place where he felt safest. That's what made the conspiracies around his murder spread so fast. People didn't believe it was just random. They saw it as a calculated play, done in broad daylight to send a message. The shooters knew Dolph's routine. He was known to pull up at Maqueda's whenever he was back home. They didn't catch him by accident. They were waiting. That's why so many fans believe there were bigger players behind the hit. Hernandez Govan being accused of giving the order didn't answer the real question. Who gave it to him? Because the move was too precise, too bold, and too public to just be about personal beef. Even Glock admitted years later that Dolph's death didn't feel random. Without naming names, he said there was betrayal and fake love all around Dolph. He knew Dolph's loyalty to Memphis made him vulnerable. And in the end, it may have been the thing that got him lined up. Glock's own words echoed what fans were already saying. Dolph died because he trusted his city too much. And that's the painful irony. The same love that made Dolph a hero in Memphis made him a target in Memphis. The same streets he fed turned around and set him up. To this day, Glock struggles with that reality. He lost his cousin, his mentor, and his partner, not in some faraway place, but right in the city Dolph swore he'd never leave behind. For the culture, Dolph's death is a lesson. Loyalty is rare, but in the wrong environment, it can be deadly. Dolph refused to abandon his people, but in return, he became an easy target for the snakes hiding in plain sight. Since the day Dolph was murdered, the street's been asking the same question. Was Eric Holder, the man convicted of pulling the trigger, really the mastermind, or just a pawn in a much bigger play? To a lot of people, the official story never added up. Holder supposedly shot Dolph after an argument, but how do you explain the level of planning, the multiple shooters, and the way everything went down in broad daylight? It felt bigger than one man snapping. It felt like Dolph was lined up. That's where the fall guy theory comes in. Just like with Hernandez Govan being accused of ordering the hit, people believe Holder was simply the face they put on the crime. Somebody had to take the fall, and the courts got their man. But the idea that it started and ended with him? The culture never believed that. Too many people stood to gain from Dolph's death, from rivals in Memphis who wanted him out of the way, to industry figures uncomfortable with his independence. Remember, Dolph wasn't signed to a major label. He owned his masters, ran Paper Route Empire his own way, and showed other rappers that they didn't need a middleman to eat. That's powerful, but it's also dangerous to a system built on keeping artists dependent. Killing Dolph didn't just silence a rapper, it silenced a movement. His message was worth more than his music, and that made him a threat to both the streets and the boardrooms. Key Glock knows this, and that's why his silence speaks louder than any interview. He's not naming names, he's not pointing fingers, because in Memphis, that's how you end up next on the list. Instead, he let his actions talk. He's kept Pre alive, dropped projects, and honored Dolph through his music. But you can tell the weight still eats at him. He admitted the betrayal came from close, that people around Dolph showed fake love, and that the city Dolph gave everything to ended up being the same city that took him. For fans, Glock represents survival. He's the last soldier left to carry Dolph's vision forward, even while knowing the snakes that set him up might still be out there. That's why when he finally speaks, people lean in. Not because they expect him to snitch, but because they want to hear how someone who lost so much still finds the strength to keep going. At the end of the day, Dolph's murder feels less like random violence and more like a play with too many moving parts. Justin Johnson and Cornelia Smith may have pulled the triggers, Hernandez Govan may have made the call, and Eric Holder may be sitting with the conviction, but the bigger picture still feels unfinished. Key Glock's silence isn't weakness. It's proof that even he knows the truth is deeper than what the courts are willing to say. And that's what keeps Dolph's death alive in conversation. Not just the pain, not just the betrayal, but the suspicion that the real story is still untold. Glock might never spell it out, but the streets already did. Dolph wasn't just killed, he was sacrificed. By enemies, by snakes in his circle, and by a system that couldn't handle his independence.